It's time to introduce the rope bags I'll be putting out for BG Gear. This video might seem a little long to some. This is not your typical like 30-second rah looky me video. This is just trying to cover all the bases in one video. So feel free to like skip ahead, skip back. I've got what I'm calling the FlowT and the Grand Baggy bags. On both the FlowT medium and small, you've got pieces of foam that can be put inside to be able to make it a floating bag. And then the Grand Baggy was specifically designed kind of around Grand Canyon canyoneering, where people use the hyperlight packs. So this is a small, I think I've got 120 feet of rope in here or something. You can hear that the fabric is kind of crinkly. That will eventually kind of get softer and become more of just a supple bag. I'll show you one that's used here in just a moment. Again, big thing of drainage, side carry handle, draw cord, speed bead, I'll cover that in a moment. Reflective ribbon around the top. That's a headlight can see it in the dark. And after these have been used a while, this one is about 2 years old. It's a proto we've been riding hard along with some others. But you can hear the fabric. It's kind of softens right up to a normal feeling kind of bag. So that's been holding up for like 2 years with a lot of use. Pretty good. So I'm going to use a little note here. And for more specifics, just look at the product page on the store and it'll kind of dial it in a little bit more specifically than this. But again, like everything varies with rope sizes. The only thing different about the weights will be all the shoulder straps were cut kind of about the same. So a gram here and there difference in weights. So we'll start with the small. The small is going to fit you up to about 150 feet of rope, depending on the rope. Like if you're using something really stiff, like a Inlay Canyon Fire, it won't compress down as much, so you're not going to get as much rope in there. If you're using something super slinky, like a Canyon Extreme or a Slither, it'll compress more and you get more rope in there. And then obviously the foam can take up a little bit of space. So that's why there's variances in everything that's being said here. The medium, you can get about 250 feet of rope in here, again, depending on rope, flotation, etc., as covered. The Grand Baggy was made specifically for Grand Canyon canyoneering, where most people are using the hyperlight packs. I've kind of sized this so that when it fills up with rope, it kind of takes on the shape roughly of the same kind of dimensions as the hyperlight pack. Like their pods fit down perfectly in the pack. This will get close to that same perfect fit. And then depending on how much rope you've put in, it'll just squish down to however tall the rope fits. So it can either be big or small, but the cross section will fit into a hyperlight quite well. In the Grand Canyon, the thing that they seem to care about the most is weight. And they don't really need a lot of drainage. Yes, there's water here and there, but they generally don't need a lot of drainage. So what I've done is I've gotten rid of let's use the white so you can see the difference here. I've gotten rid of, grab the white on the medium. This is the medium FlowT, and you can see the drainage goes all the way across. And then the Grand Baggy, you can see I've got the drainage really small. The reason for that is they don't need a lot of drainage and the mesh is way heavier than the fabric. So if we reduce that down to the enough drainage, we get the weight down. Let's go over some basic features, just kind of the overview rundown of this. Again, we've already kind of covered it, but a difference between the Grand Baggy and then the FlowT medium and small is the flotation insert. Grand Baggy does not have it, FlowT does. Overall, the shape, I'm calling it a hybrid shape, which I tend to like. It's got more of a round cross section at the top, and kind of as it goes down to the bottom, it's more of a wedge or envelope shape is kind of what I call it. And the advantages are with the round top, it gives you the nice ability to have like a big open stuff zone so your hands get in there and you don't have a lot of bag in the way. Then when you drop down and you go to wedge or envelope style at the bottom, what's nice about it is if you drop it on a slope, it doesn't accidentally want to roll and keep rolling. It'll usually kind of settle in somewhere so it doesn't just keep going. And then also when you're going to shove it inside your pack, you can use this wedge shape to kind of nestle in and get into places and shove it in and make room, and then you can kind of tamp it in there. So the shape is kind of nice, having best of both worlds, big round and then little envelope or wedge shape at the bottom. If you compare this to other bags that have grommets or where they've punched holes all up and down the bag, this drains significantly faster. There's a lot more actual hole volume there for water to drain out. It's deceiving. It doesn't look that way. But if you do the math and calculate it out, it's a lot more drainage. So this drains a lot faster than it looks like it's going to drain. Let's go tie-in options. So your tie-in options, when you're done stuffing the rope and you're going to tie in the top end of your rope, you will tie that to the same loop that you're clipped into. And I'll come back to this clipped in top handle loop in a moment. But before you stuff the rope, you're going to want to tie in the bottom end. So if you throw the rope bag off somewhere and it doesn't reach the bottom, you don't lose your rope bag. It's still on the rope. Where you would do that is you would tie in, if you look in the bag right off here on the left, you'll have a loop that's pointing downward. That's where you can do that. But optionally, you have this bottom tie-in loop that goes from the outside of the bag through this hole, and then on the inside of the bag back down to the bottom. So this loop is on the bottom, but it's on both ends of that bag with a little pass-through hole right here. So if you prefer a bottom tie-in, you can reach in and tie it in on the bottom on that loop. Or if you prefer a tie-in bottom on the outside of the bag, you can put it through here, pass the rope through this little hole, and then tie in on the outside. So those are your tie-in options. First, I want to talk about this top handle, what's different about it. It's not just a handle on the outside, and it's not just a handle on the inside to, how some will have on both. This is one strap that goes from the outside up and over and back onto the inside. So you can see it's one strap that goes all the way up and over the bag. What that accomplishes is it's a good carry handle, which you can either carry from the side carry handle, which might as well just get that out of the way now. So obviously a side carry handle, and when you're carrying it, the draw cord doesn't dangle down by your feet because I've got it positioned at the top. I don't like trip hazards. Same goes for the shoulder strap. There's no trip hazards with that. You adjust it where you want it and then kind of leave it alone, and you don't have buckles and straps hanging to trip you. And if you want to just do without it, just remove it. Let's come back to what this top loop is for. Is when you're stuffing the bag, you also then clip your bag to it, fold this open, you're stuffing your rope. When you're done, instead of looking for another place to tie it in, you just grab that same loop that you're already connected to and you tie the top of the rope to it, you shove it in the bag. Then you can close the bag while you're still attached to the bag. It's all closed up, and then you can disconnect and walk away. If you have cold hands or working with gloves and you're just having a hard time messing with that cord lock and you don't like it, as you're carrying it, just keep a hold of the side handle, take a finger, just grab that speed bead and pull, and now you're open. So you don't have to squeeze and manipulate that cord lock with cold, freezing hands or with gloves on. The top, I've got a reflective ribbon around the top, so if you happen to be benighted in the dark, this picks up a reflection off your headlight really brightly. It shines bright. Over the course of a few years, this is 2 years old, it will start to kind of scratch and wear off, but this is 2 years old and it's still in pretty good shape and still reflects well. Now I'd like to give you a little bit of a show of just kind of the fabric that I'm using. So let's go to the simple one, is the mesh. This is the same mesh that I'm using with the smooth sack. It's held up well over the years, super rugged. When I was first looking for meshes, I'd talked to several different manufacturers, and of course they all say they're the best and the most rugged, and they all feel and look rather the same. I took and run the mesh through a battery of my own tests with hooking it to a block and running it on abrasion just to kind of see how it handled. I put holes in it and pulled and just kind of stacked weights on each one to see how strong the actual bonds between the weave that's kind of held together with the dip that's on there, and see which one was stronger that way. And then I also took and cut individual threads out of the meshes and put weights on them and put them on a braiding shaft and waited for it to break and timed it. And this mesh far and above just crushed. So the construction and how it's made that was described to me lived up to the hype. So I'm going to leave that pretty simple. It's a good mesh. Kind of the cool new thing going on with this is the fabric. It's made by Challenge Sailcloth. It's Ultra 400. I'm using the 400. There's 1, 2, 4, and 800s. This is kind of a good balance between weight and rugged. The 200 was a little less resistant to being punctured. The 800 is just super overkill. It's good for other things, but for this, the 400 was like that nice balance point between very rugged and light. So what's nice about it is it's about half the weight See, if you look at the specs, Cordura 1000 denier is about 312 grams per square meter, and this stuff's about 158 grams per square meter. So you're about half the weight, doesn't absorb water, stays light even when it's wet. The abrasion resistance, I know you can run all the tests and those don't always match up to real world. Got to go buy something. So I've got two things. Is one, this one back here in the background has been running for about 2 years, holding strong. So it is abrasion resistant. If you just look at the testing, the ASTM D3884 test standard, Cordura, depending on the source you look at, is anywhere from like 1,000 to 1,500 cycles. If you look at the Ultra 400, it's 8,000 cycles. Again, that's just a test in a laboratory and doesn't match real world, but it gives you an idea of how much more abrasion resistant it is. The other interesting feature about this versus Cordura, you've got the Cordura and the Ultra 400, is the 400 punctures just a little bit easier than the Cordura. Cordura is amazingly good at puncture resistance. What I've done, and I'll just show you kind of the difference real quick, but in these two samples, I've just poked holes large enough for carabiners in here, and then I'll show you what I'm about to talk about. So if you're using your rope bag, you're tossing it, it goes into a tree or whatever, and it happens to get punctured, first off, this is about how hard it is to puncture. That's 1000 denier Cordura. And then this is the Ultra 400. So it punctured a bit easier. It's still holding on. So that in itself makes you think, oh, maybe it's a little weaker. It's actually better. And here's why. So what I've done with these samples is I made holes exactly the same, but in the interest of saving time, I decided to just kind of pre-do them. I threw a little rod in here to spread the hole a little bit. Pair of needle nose pliers to spread the hole even more, just large enough to put a carabiner in there. So that's what's been done to all of these holes. So let me show you what the Cordura does. So let's say you get your bag ripped and you're kind of, worried about, oh my God, I've taken on some bit damage to my bag. If you're running out of Cordura, what you'll find is that if you snag it on something else, it'll kind of start to rip, and then the rip will just keep going. It'll actually just propagate right through the material. It'll rip like you're used to a lot of things doing. The difference between Cordura and the Ultra 400 is how it behaves once it gets that puncture. Yes, it punctures slightly easier, but once it is punctured, not really that big of a deal as far as a rope bag goes. So again, I'm going to throw carabiners through the holes. And then here I'm going to pull. So that, I think, is my weight. That's why I put this sling on here so I can stand on it. And I'm going to put my full body weight and I'm going to bounce. It's kind of starting to rip. But it's like super strong. And all the holes did with full body weight is they just elongated a little bit. They got a little bit bigger, but the fibers themselves are so strong that they don't start breaking individual strands. They just kind of stretch until more and more of them join forces, and now you've got a slightly bigger hole, but it's bomber. So that's kind of the difference on why this material is so good. It's light, it's abrasion resistance, it doesn't absorb water, and when it does puncture, you don't have a lot to worry about. The rest of the fabrics are your normal nylons for what you're used to seeing in other construction. This is XLPE foam, normal, the kind of the gold standard in flotation. I know this is kind of a review for a lot of people, but it might help you just see some of the features of the bag while we're at it. So the bag is stuffed, ready to go. If you want to open quickly, you can just wrap your finger on the speed bead to open, or you can just pull the cord lock like normal. And then the way I've got the rope put in here right now is tied into the top loop. That's where the bottom of the rope is tied into. So it's this loop on the left when it's clipped to your harness. It's on one on the left pointing down. But want to tie in the bottom of the bag. Again, we covered in the feature how this loop goes inside and out. You can either reach down in the bag and tie your rope into the bottom with whatever knot you like to tie in, and then it's down in there. If you like to see it out the bottom of your bag, the same hole that this strap goes through, you just poke your rope through that same hole, and then you can tie in on the bottom of the bag with whatever knot you're used to using. If you do this, I kind of suggest throwing a little overhand in the knot on this end of the rope inside the bag so your tail doesn't go wandering out. But for my purposes, I'm using the top loop, so you'll have that tied in, and unless you need to remove the bag for some reason, that just always stays tied in to stuff. You'll put the top loop on your harness there. I'll need a helmet. So this fabric is new and fairly stiff, so it stays out of the way pretty good. As the fabric gets floppy, that is the one downside. It will get floppy. I haven't found a great way to make the bag stay open without also making the bag big, bulky, or heavy. It's kind of pick your poison. So one thing that's helpful is this loop helps hold this part up. But when you're using the bag, especially when it kind of breaks in, just take this end away from you and fold it down, to a natural seam zone. And then on this end, it's also helpful to kind of fold this one back and just do a little half fold in here. And that really helps kind of pull it out of the way, even when the bag is light and floppy. What some people will also do is, some people like to just sit on the ground. I know people that love to sit on the ground, so it holds the bag for you, and it makes, there we go, get the rope out of the way. Makes stuffing a lot easier. The bag just kind of being held. If you want to push the easy button on getting this stuffed and keeping the fabric out of the way, just have a friend stand right in front of you and grab the front of the bag and hold it out, because it'll be attached to your harness. They can hold it out like a big bucket for you. All right, so once you're stuffed and you get to the end of the rope, you don't have to go fiddling around. And obviously, if this was more rope, I would have had this flipped up already. But you don't need to go looking around for, oh, where's my tie-in loop? You just go to the same loop that your harness is already connected to, and just run the rope in it. Tie it off however you like to tie it. And then what you're going to want to do is be sure you slide that down the strap into the inside of the bag. You're done. When you're ready to, you don't need to take this off and figure out how to close it. You can, while it's still attached to your harness, you can just grab, close the bag up. You're ready, you take it off, and you're good to go. And so if you're adding the shoulder strap, I've made it so you can take these off at any time. You don't need to keep it on there if you want to save weight. You'll find your tri-glide there. Start by running the end of the strap just through one side of the tri-glide on the bottom of the bag. Then you're going to want to come up and run the tail, rethread it through both sides of the tri-glide that's on the strap, and pull that through. So you now have yourself a loop here going through the bag with the tail out here. Then you're going to take the tail and run it up through the bottom of the tri-glide here, run it back through the top, and get my hands out of the way so you can at least pretend to see. And then once you've got that kind of ran, leave yourself a good tail. You want to wrap back over the top of the tri-glide and rethread back in, back to the top of the bag. Back toward the bottom of the bag, I'm sorry. This is a little awkward while I try to keep you where you can see what you're doing. So you should then look like this. Let's move this up here. Now your shoulder strap is on, it's cinched down. You should have a loop coming here. Tail goes up through the tri-glide, back through, and it has to be doubled back. Leave yourself a tail. That way it's not going to come out or anything. When you want it short, you have it cinched up like this. Feel free to cut this to length, whatever, if you decide it's too long. You want it longer, you just slide this down and you got it longer. You want it shorter, you just slide this up, let it equalize out, and you're shorter. For the foam, I've got this set up on the inside a little bit differently. There's no Velcro, snaps, zippers. There's nothing to really fail and go wrong there. You want to put the foam in. If you just open the bag, you'll see there's a couple of flaps in here where the foam can slide. If you just try to wrestle it in there, you're in for a really hard time. The super simple way to do it is turn the whole bag wrong side out. So just reach in, grab the bottom of the bag, turn the whole bag wrong side out. Now you can see what's going on with the flotation and the drainage. There's basically just a flap here and flap here. And what's nice is you're going to want this curve. See how you're going to be bowed out in one direction? Put that facing down. It'll just give you more room in the rope bag. It really doesn't matter which way you put it in. So then you just slide the foam in to each side. And you're good to go. If the bag happens to be held sideways, this won't hold much water. One, there's not a ton of space in there once the rope bag is in. But two, I've left these sections on the sides left unsewn, so water will just drain out into the rest of the bag. So you've got plenty of drainage there. Then when you're done, just turn the bag back out again. And if you do this, you will save yourself a lot of effort trying to wrestle that foam in and out of the bag. Definitely want to turn this wrong side out when you're adding or removing the foam. And be sure you get the corners all kind of pressed back down. And now you got your foam inserted in it.